Welcome to In the Studio on Davis Media Access. I'm Tim Gaffaney. Well, at last count, it's been about 76 live events, 26 podcasts during COVID, 165 authors, and 80 or so actors. And that's 10 years worth of work. I'm talking about Stories on Stage Davis, which presents dramatic readings of fiction each month at the Pence Gallery in downtown Davis. And here to talk to us today about Stories on Stage is the group's director, Emily Masuda. Emily has a bachelor's degree as well as an MFA in writing from UC Davis. She has taught in Japan at Winters High School and in the writing program at UC Davis. She currently works as a library assistant at the Yolo County Public Library in Davis. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Congratulations on the 10th anniversary of Stories on Stage.
Thank you so much. It's quite an accomplishment to be here for 10 years. I myself have been part of Stories on Stage for three of those, but have known about it almost in its entirety. And I really would like to congratulate the whole team who, past, present, and future, who make it possible.
That's great. Well, so can you tell us a little bit about how Stories on Stage got started and maybe a little bit about the vision of its founder, Jerry Howitt?
Yeah, so from what I've heard, Stories on Stage Davis began as a passion project of the founder, Jerry Howitt, who is retained as our author recruiter now in our 10th season. Jerry saw that there was nothing quite like Stories on Stage Davis in the area, at least within Davis. Stories on Stage Sacramento existed and gave her an idea to bring that sort of live storytelling format to this town. Another organization that inspired her was NPR's Selected Shorts. And so, with those two as models, she crafted Stories on Stage Davis, and it's been here since 2013. And it's always been at the Pence Art Gallery.
Great. So can you describe a typical Stories on Stage event?
Of course, yes. So we always host two authors. We try to get them to be as local as possible. Often
Mhm.
established and emerging are coupled together. And then their stories, which can be short stories, they can be excerpts from novels. We delve into nonfiction stories sometimes. Those are then practiced and read aloud by two local actors whom you find for us as our casting director. And so one story and one actor goes first. The author gets to introduce their work, and then they get the pleasure of sitting back and hearing their story be brought to life on stage. And then we take a short intermission, do the second story, and then it's a wrap from there.
Great. And yes, I suppose in full disclosure, I should cop to the fact that I do wear a hat also as the casting director for Stories on Stage, and have been lucky to have directors such as you and Evan and Naomi and Jeremy over the years to work with in casting. Well, to that point of actors reading the work, now in a typical reading of fiction or nonfiction, an author comes and reads their own work. So, why was this decision made to have an actor read the work? What does that add to the evening that we
Mhm.
might not get if you simply had the author read their own work?
Yeah, great question. So I think there is this precedent set by NPR's Selected Shorts as well as Stories on Stage Sacramento to have that format of actors reading the work. But in terms of what that provides, I am borrowing this from one of the actors we've had who described it as a live audiobook. The story really is brought to life by an actor who has that sort of experience with theater, who can embody characters, bring dialogue to life, even do different voices with the dialogue. It's a very different experience from simply having the story read aloud to you, although I'm sure authors, some of them have that sort of reading style as well. But from what I hear
Mhm.
from our authors, it's a delight to them to
Mhm.
hear their work brought to life, and a lot of them have also told me they don't particularly like the reading part themselves at a typical event, and so, they think it's quite a treat.
Ah. So, does Stories on Stage collaborate with any other culture or arts organizations in the community to do what it does?
Yes, and that's something that I hope to improve or not improve, but continue in the future and develop um, those sort of connections we have with other arts organizations to strengthen uh, all of us in the community. One in particular that stands out, of course, is the Pence Art Gallery. It's been our home these past 10 years, and it's a very beautiful space in which we get to be and have our events surrounded by beautiful art, and it changes pretty much every time that we're in there. So it's fun for our audience members who attend. They not only get to come hear stories, but they get to go and have a little gallery tour as well. So not only the Pence Art Gallery, we also like to support our local bookstore, the Avid Reader. And so we have book sales at our events. So you can purchase books and then you can get them signed by the authors themselves right there. So we would like to continue being supportive of our local businesses and especially bookstores like the Avid Reader. And then finally, we in the last few years, actually, I think now we've had two events with the Yolo County Library, and so we have a yearly event. It is tied with a contest for local high school students. The theme has changed every year, so the first year we did memoir that was featuring Reina Grande and had a memoir writing contest for high school students in Yolo County. And then the next year, or actually, I believe it was 2 years after that, we had Kim Stanley Robinson, science fiction author. And so we had a science fiction writing contest. And that event was at the Brunel because we were inviting and hoping to have an even bigger audience. So those are three main organizations we collaborate with, but we're always open to other opportunities.
Mhm. And, by the way, I wanted to mention that, Natalie from the Pence Gallery was on, I believe it was a year ago. I believe it was the September 2022, uh, edition of In the Studio Arts Beat, where we had her in to visit. So that's great that, we can have all of you in. I also wanted to just follow up on the most recent, event you had on the writing contest at Brunel, and just prompt you to say a little bit more about working with the high school in particular on that, and how I know that there was the actors reading the winning story were high school students, and the one of the faculty, one of the teachers at Davis High was involved in that.
Yes, we were so fortunate to work with the local high school, Davis Senior High, and one of their teachers who is in charge of a theater class. That's Shenandoah Kehoe and three of her students. And so for the winning student story, it was a little bit more like a play, a radio play with multiple parts. And so she had the idea, and I believe Dr. Andy, who is our host, also had the idea to think of it as something instead of just one actor, why not have multiple? And then also, why not invite high school students to read the high school piece? And so it was a really fun collaboration to bring in all this younger talent and present them on a large stage.
Yeah, yeah, and I just wanted to prompt you on that because I know that was a little different model than having the actors, the professional community actors that you've had in for other events. And also, not to continue name dropping, but I also wanted to point out that Andy was on our show a couple months ago as well, which was really great. Uh, okay, so 10 years behind, hopefully 10 years ahead at least. Any You did mention some things about working, in new ways with the community. Just wondered if there are any other ideas or plans out there for any new directions in the second decade of the
Mhm.
organization.
Yeah, this is a great question. I would love to continue inviting emerging authors. I think that's something I'm passionate about because that's how I originally got involved with Stories on Stage Davis. As we have become more established, as we've gained more years as an organization, um, we are more well known in the community of Davis, but then also at large. And so we are solicited with a lot of stories that people would like us to present. And so our seasons fill up really quickly with established authors. But I would like to hold space still moving forward for those emerging authors, local authors, and present them alongside established authors, just because I think this might be the place where authors get their start. Um, and so that is one way that I'd really like to see Stories on Stage Davis preserve that part of its original vision going forward in the next 10 years. And then, yeah, just strengthening our ties with the community. I love these kind of events like the one at the Brunel that worked with the high school that is trying to engage um, more of the community, and make it feel like it's very much a community event that all people can attend. Um, and yeah, we'd also like to grow our audience. We'd love to stay at the Pence Art Gallery at the same time. So, but we would love to see even more people come out, and we're thinking about ideas of how to do so. We'd also just like to be around, as a nonprofit arts organization. We depend on donations, and we're really grateful to have a very generous following, and also generous funding from the City of Arts Davis grant. We're fiscally sponsored by Yola Arts as well, and so just seeing those sort of things continue, can help fuel arts in the community, not just for us, but for many different organizations.
Great. Well, if you don't mind, I'd also just like to ask you a little bit about more about your own, about Emily Masuda's involvement, and it's my understanding that your work was presented at Stories on Stage once upon a time, and I'm just curious, how that experience, as well as your ongoing work with Stories on Stage, how has that impacted your own work as a writer?
It's completely shaped it. I feel that if I didn't have that experience as an emerging author with Stories on Stage Davis, where I was lucky enough to have a story presented, I don't think I would have felt like I recognized myself as an author as well. But it definitely granted me some feelings of like legitimacy, um, as someone who can write and should write and continue writing, and I would love to pass on that feeling to more people. um, and so, yeah, I was just so lucky to have that experience. And as you can see, I haven't left yet, or I maybe I attended as an audience member, and then I found a way to get on the board and give back in this way.
Great, you got on board by getting on the board. Um,
Yes.
Well, just you said about sticking around, and just perhaps my final question to you: what's your feeling about? Obviously, you have strong feelings about the great work that Stories on Stage is doing, and that some of its collaborators are doing, or its collaborators are doing. And what to you is it about Davis? What makes Davis a special place? Do you think for the arts,
Mm.
and what makes possible all the groups that are here contributing to the arts and culture of this community?
What I think it is that a lot of people are either very outwardly or maybe privately artists in some way themselves. And so there are many different kinds of arts organizations. There are theater organizations. There's Stories on Stage, which is kind of a mix of theater and storytelling. There are a lot of more studio arts organizations and so on, music. And so I feel like Davis not only supports the arts, but it supports the people doing the arts. And so it feels very much like it's a community oriented place to be, someone who explores art and really supports the idea that anybody can be an artist and be an artist in their own way. And so we have our own little slice of what that kind of art is, and we hope that more people who gravitate towards that will find us.
Very nicely said, Emily. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we have been talking with Emily Masuda. She is the director of Stories on Stage Davis, which presents events every second Tuesday of the month, September through June, at the Pence Gallery at 7:30 p.m. For more information, please visit storiesonstagedavis.com. And thank you all out there for joining us today. I'm Tim Gaffany, and you've been watching In the Studio on Davis Media Access.